Dr. Ashi, and I'm here with Dr. Pamela O'Leary.
It's me.
And like I was saying, we started in graduate school together during COVID. We did a Zoom call where we had to record and basically pretend we knew what we were doing. And now we're both doctors.
It's wild. It's been a wild ride. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nowadays, everyone's talking about plastic surgery and botox and lip fillers and all these things.
hmm
So, um, before we talk about that, just for anybody who doesn't know, what is body dysphoric disorder?
Yeah, so
Did I say that right?
body dysmorphic disorder.
Right, dysmorphic.
Um, so basically it's a basically a preoccupation with your appearance, but it could be like a specific part of your appearance. Like a lot of times people fixate on their nose or a certain part of their body.
Mm,
And there'll be like a lot of comparisons that's done and like a lot of mirror checking. There's a lot of kind of parallels with OCD type behaviors with regards to BDD. And I think one of the main components of BDD and like understanding what's actually happening when somebody has BDD is there's a lot of internal pressure and a lot of shame around this like body preoccupation.
mm,
And honestly, what the first time I heard about BDD, I was in middle school, and then into high school, I started learning more because my friend, I thought she was like literally the most magnificent person I've ever seen in my entire life, like absolutely stunning.
mm,
She stopped coming to school, and all my friends were like, why is she no longer coming to school? Like, this is so confusing. And we then learned that she had BDD, and she
mm,
thought she was incredibly ugly and that people should not like
mm,
bear witness to her. And this like really confused me. I was like, how is this actually possible? This person, she should be on the cover of magazine. She's so stunning.
mm, mm,
And so then I was like, oh, that's like so interesting. And that's when BDD kind of came on my radar. And I feel like there's just so much there with regards to like the internal shame. I think there's like a lot of trauma components.
mm,
And a lot of times when people go into cosmetic surgeons, and cosmetic surgery practices, and they go in looking for a nose job, sometimes they'll get the nose job done, but it either will be like not perfect or they'll change their preoccupation to another part of their body. So
mm,
these are the people that are like they leave mostly dissatisfied. Like they're never really
mm.
happy with because what they need is mental support and help.
Yeah, so it's a preoccupation with your appearance to the point of like real anxiety, almost to like an OCD, like an obsessive level. And I
Yes.
think another feature of it that's important is that objectively, or at least from other people's point of view, the flaws that the people see in themselves are not apparent to other people, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's like in this case, you thought this girl was like model beautiful, and she did not see the reality that I'm sure most people would probably agree with you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like none of us could understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we can relate. I think a lot of people can relate to feeling insecure about some aspect of their appearance.
Mhm.
And I think we can also relate to when we hear someone else kind of critique their own appearance in a way that's like pretty harsh, like saying that they're overweight or that their nose is too whatever. And all of us are kind of like, you look great. What are you talking about?
I think because we live in a world now where we're kind of understanding ourselves as an object in a way, like we're
Mm,
constantly living in a culture that teaches people to look at themselves the way that a camera looks at them. It's like, okay, what parts of
mm,
my do I like? Like we're constantly getting feedback about how we look. And we're also getting ways in which we could potentially change it, like with filters, that I think
mm,
people are constantly seeing different types of potential in the way that they could look or the way that they could be experienced by others. That is very, very alluring at this time
mm,
in our culture. I also think this we're about to go down like another rabbit hole. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's just go. Let's jump in.
Okay. Because I'm also thinking about AI, and I have like a lot of thoughts about AI because I'm thinking about how AI can create these perfect replications of people, like
Mm.
everyone's perfected. And I'm thinking about even I have you seen any of those like AI influencers?
You know what? I think I saw a short the other night where it was obviously an AI person talking about relationships or something, and I looked at the channel and it was
Yeah.
clearly just an AI. It was almost like a dating coach type person, but it wasn't a real person. But it's getting very realistic. It was almost like too perfect looking though that you could tell it wasn't a real person.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so like this is my whole thought process and point
Mm,
is that because with AI, perfection can be constantly replicated. I
mm,
think what people will lean into more than ever is their imperfections because
mm,
that's where our humanity will lie. Like I think
mm,
looking at people and seeing them as with perfect faces, perfectly symmetrical, the perfect nose, like
mm,
I think there's so much that's lost with that. Like I think this gets into the question of like what is beautiful and what do we find beautiful? And like for
mm,
me, that's like constantly evolving, like even as I get older, like as we were talking about at the beginning. Like I am only 29, but like I do think about like what who are the people that I look to that I find the most beautiful. And oh my gosh, well, one of the people is like my grandmother, but I like look at her and I'm like, oh my God, she has like a story on her face. Like she has laugh lines. I'm like, oh my God, those are from all the time she smiled. Like she has
mm.
freckles on her face. And I like think about like the sun kissing her face. And like I think about all these
Wow.
different components about like how a person's face can tell a story.
Mm,
And I think with Botox and like facelifts, you're just like removing so much of your history and like who you are and your individualized self. And like
mm,
with that, you're like losing a component of your humanity that makes me so sad. Like I think about children, and you've like seen the studies about like being able to look at your child and like make a face and like how children are supposed to, that's like a way of connecting with your child is like making a
mm,
happy face and like moving. And like I'm just thinking about children like whose parents have or the I'm I was about to gender it, but whose parents have Botox and like can't
mm,
move their faces, and how much is probably lost with that too. Like, will the child then be more stoic? Like, I'm just like thinking
mm.
about all these different components, and I don't think all the research is there yet, but I don't know. I think that's fascinating to think about.
Yeah, oh God, I don't want to butcher this. I'll keep it simple so that I'm not at risk of getting this wrong. But in research on mirror neurons, that basically it's empathy. So when someone smiles, we tend to smile back.
Hmm.
And if someone makes a sad face, then we tend to make a sad face too. Like this is very much a part of being a social animal.
Yeah,
And some of the research should suggests that we actually our smiling is part of the empathy process, which means it's not that we necessarily feel what they feel and then smile. It's that as we smile and we mimic the facial expressions, that allows us to empathize. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
And so some of the research, I'm gonna have to look this up, but I saw something which basically said that people that get Botox, because they can't do a full smile, because it kind of freezes the muscles in your face, it
Hmm.
makes it so that you can't actually fully experience your emotions to the capacity that you normally would be able to, because we actually kind of need that body. We need to do the facial expression to feel it too. It's part of that process. And it
Hmm.
also makes it harder for us to understand what other people are feeling because we can't mimic them in our facial expressions. And so somebody might smile in a very animated way, and if you have Botox, you can't fully smile with them, which creates this kind of emotional dullness.
To me, the most important component about like being human is being able to connect with other humans.
Mm,
And if you take that connective tissue away, like what do we have? Like there's like an immense loneliness that comes with
mm.
that to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like imagining a world where you just cannot smile. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people underappreciate how much our facial expressions uh really matter, right? I think we take it for granted. Um,
Hmm.
if you had some lock on your face so that you can never smile. So if you're watching a movie and something funny happens, you can't release, you can't laugh, you would
Mm.
feel much different, right? I can't really imagine it, right? Because I would laugh. But if I wasn't able to smile right now, like how would this conversation go? Like would we be able to even, feel each other? It would be very distancing.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like us being able to like laugh together has probably been maybe one of the major components of our relationship. Like I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
know. Let's just imagine if we couldn't smile right now. Like we were just like dead serious, but we wanted to, but we couldn't.
well, I think about that as like energy, like being like stifled. Like is
Yeah.
like it's like the being able to like smile and like emote. There's like some kind of like vital force that comes from being expressive to me that I
Mm,
feel like is like allows energy to move through you in a way that like again, I think that's another component about therapy is like we sometimes can intellectualize so much and be inside
mm,
of our heads. But so much is happening inside of our bodies that we're maybe not even aware of. But
mm,
even just like talking about like we've only just talked about the face and like thinking about how important that component is. Like even like me, I'm like talking with my hands. Like there is so much like movement and energy that can come from like expressing yourself.
mm,
I feel like there's like that's like part of art as well. Like if you're, I think good art makes you feel something. And if you can I feel like there's something incredibly beautiful about being able to like create an emotion inside of another person. And, art is a way of doing that. But I also think like therapy is its own kind of art. And being able
mm,
to person while they're like moving through some of these profound emotions is also like its own kind of art form.
mm. So somebody has body dysmorphia and they want to change their nose, for example. And so they go to do that with a plastic surgeon. How do we differentiate between that person and somebody who wants to change some aspect of their nose? They go, they get it done, they feel totally satisfied, and they don't get plastic surgery again, and they feel more confident and they feel more attractive. How do we distinguish between these two people?
Questionnaires.
Hmm.
So there are like surveys that you can give people so that they can determine whether or not they have BDD or not. So there's
Hmm.
something that some of the tools that I was looking into, there was one in particular, I think it was the BDDQ, and it was a short form questionnaire that I was suggesting that doctors should give their patients prior to any kind of surgery. And I think it should, even if you like question if they have BDD or not, I was suggesting that everyone should get this questionnaire and it be a part of an intake form. So like they're
Hmm.
filling out their intake form, giving their history, and then it just be a part of the packet that they get. And I thought that'd be like a really simple way to eradicate the time that the surgeons were talking about.
Hmm.
Eradicate like components of I don't know the right questions to ask or like how to correctly go about this. Like I was basically like there are resources out there that can be utilized in order to determine if someone has BDD or not. And they've been tried and true and tested. So I'm like, you should really utilize those. So I'm
Hmm.
suggesting the best way to do it is through a questionnaire. Like you don't need a whole battery to figure out if someone has BDD.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you talked about earlier is that a lot of plastic surgeons, they might know on some level that this is somebody who doesn't need plastic surgery, cosmetically, like with the person you described earlier. But the way they see it, they want it. They're an adult. They have, free will, right? In this case, what is free will? If somebody meets criteria for a mental health disorder, but they almost have a conflict of interest here because it sounds like it's not regulated, right? Like plastic surgeons have to screen for this. And so they basically were thinking, well, if someone's going to do it, then I might as well do it because otherwise I'm losing money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. It is very brutal. And like another component is like if a person is flagged for having BDD after they do one of the questionnaires, there's like no kind of system in place to give them the opportunity to get a therapist. Like there's no like,
Mm,
oh, you have this. Now, these are some resources. It's like, oh, you have this, like, we now deny you services. And it's like, that's why they'll go to somebody else. So I think
Mm,
there's like no like comprehensive way to go about telling somebody that they have BDD and then like ushering them or like kind of leading them into getting the actual help that they need, which is the mental support.
mm.
Um, so I think that's like another component that's an issue.
I think right now there's a lot of talk about celebrities getting plastic surgery. And I've seen, I won't name names, but I've seen actors and actresses where I'm watching a show or something, and then they come the next season and it's like so clear that they got plastic surgery. And
Mhm.
I get this sense of they actually don't look, I mean, I guess it's subjective, but for me, it's almost like I feel sad sometimes because they genuinely look different. And it's almost like I miss their face previously. It's
Mm.
almost like I lost them a little bit. And I know it's kind of odd because I don't know them, right? It's like a character, but there's something almost sad about it.
Mhm.
How many celebrities do you think have meet criteria for BDD, and how much of it do you think is just the culture in Hollywood or whatever?
So the general population, I think it was like it was like 2% is like how many people in the general population have BDD, but then there were some studies that suggested that it was more, especially in the cosmetic surgery setting. Like I'm pretty
Mm.
sure there were some like recent studies that it went up to like 18%,
Oh wow.
which is pretty insane. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly how many celebrities, but I feel like because celebrities, like they have to be more focused on their appearance and their image, their reality of their experience of themselves becomes more one-dimensional. Like the
Mm.
component of their worth and value is based upon how good that they look on screen. Like I
Mm.
feel like I can even think about it with regards to like the movies that are blockbuster hits now, and they're literally the same actors, like literally the same women and men right now that are getting
Mm.
rotated to all these films
Yeah.
that I think people are just like, oh, they're good looking and they have talent. Like let's just like copy paste, copy paste.
Mm.
And I again I feel like there's so much loss with like lack of diversity in both the on-screen presences, but also like lack of diversity of our experiences of other people's faces and how
Mm.
everyone I was watching a video recently and it was talking about how people in the Middle East are like constantly getting nose jobs. And I
Mm.
thought that was like super fascinating to me. And I'm just like thinking about like how again it's like the diversity of how people look is so much a part of like how we experience the world and our own history. Like I don't know, I'm
Mm.
curious about like what's being lost when everyone in the Middle East, like a lot of these Middle Easterners are like changing their nose. Like what does that mean?
Mm.
Back to what you were saying before, like I think with regards to celebrities, like how well they look is a part of their value and their
Mm.
inherent worth, I'm sure
Mm.
they feel, and is also like probably proven with box office numbers. And I guess that can kind of, so I think that's probably why there's a higher percentage of them that people are seeing get work done.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I think Instagram and social media has made us so conscious of our appearance in a way that wasn't necessarily the case before Instagram. So I think, growing up, we would see celebrities in magazines and stuff, or like when we go to the movies. But nowadays, any of us can be seen at any moment by anyone on Instagram. And so you've got a lot of people now who are Instagram famous or get, thousands of followers because of just showing how they look. And there's lots of people that are not, professional models or actors or stuff like that who now have an opportunity to be seen still by the entire world essentially. And I think that has made us hyper fixated on our appearance, but especially how we look in that domain, right? What are people looking for on Instagram? How can I cater my Instagram to show that? And I think that almost creates this culture where people, I think for women, a big part of that is the look, right? The Instagram look. And I think for a lot of guys, it turns into like body stuff. I think we're starting to see BDD with men now, especially when it comes to like getting big muscles and the gym bros, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so now I think there's just a bigger pressure now because you're actually going to be judged by the public, by what you post on your Instagram or TikTok, whatever it is.
Right. And then, well, I love what you said because I also feel like there's an extra component onto that, which is like, so there's like the image scrutiny component. Like they're
Mhm.
constantly getting, people are looking and comparing, but also like commenting. Like they have the ability to like
Mhm.
constantly comment on a person's appearance. But I think another component of that is like people can also make so much money on like if they are good looking and they've gotten the work done selling products. They can be like,
Mhm.
hey, if you want to look like me, even though I've gotten all of this work done, you can if you buy XYZ cream, you do
Mhm.
XYZ treatment. Like I think there's like a almost like a pipeline from appearance and the dream look and the
Mhm.
like, idealized version of self. And I think that also goes along with like the gym bro component too. Like I'd be
Yeah.
really curious to hear what you think about that. Like I feel like with the guys it's probably like more like supplement based, but I do feel like
Mhm.
well, I feel like this also bridges into the conversation of like beauty and wellness. Like I feel like they're now merged as well. It's like if you want to
Right.
look good, you also have to like you want to feel good. You got to take the supplement. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it is interesting how just health generally, has been kind of hijacked by the beauty industry. And I think that's true
Hmm.
for men too. So it's kind of like if you're healthy, you look this particular way as a woman, or you look this particular way as a man. But often health doesn't really have anything to do with that, right? Like you can be completely healthy and fit and not, you know, have huge pecs and a six pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's
I've,
like, I definitely get in my social media, like, I don't know why I get it because I don't really watch it that much, but it's like these guys that are talking about, the right exercises to do, like lifting weights, the right diet, when to eat. They're like chugging, egg yolks in the morning or whatever. And they post these pictures of themselves and they look like, Avengers or something.
yeah.
And it's about like be fit, be a man, be healthy, but it's also like probably not what most people will look like if they actually just exercise a decent amount and eat healthy. Now they're gonna look good, but they're not gonna look like an Avenger. So they're like obviously like exaggerating something that is still under the guise of like this is what you should do to be attractive and be healthy.
Why do people want to feel like good? And why do they want to look good? It's because they want to be attractive, because they want to maybe attract somebody. Like, I think that's a lot of the component is like, if you look good, then you can get the girl. Or
Yeah.
if you look at, and the woman too, it's like, if you look, and I think there's like so much like programming now, like with women, where it's like, you have to look. I think like the new thing that I'm noticing online is almost like, it's like all about fertility now. I don't know if you've noticed this. Like the whole
Okay.
component is about like being like a fertile woman and that equals vitality and that equals like you being worthy. Like there's something like
Hmm.
really interesting in the zeitgeist that I've been noticing. But I think what I'm trying to say with regards to that and like kind of bridging it with the the supplements and like the wellness and like the consumerism component is like people can really, really play into it of like, if you
Hmm.
want to be attractive so that you feel worthy, then buy this thing. And I
Hmm.
think there's like a very intense kind of push for that. And I think we're like missing a deeper issue of like, why do we want those things so badly? Like, is there an
Hmm.
emptiness inside of us? Like, I think that goes
Hmm.
back to like the BDD piece too, which is like, it's not about vanity. It's like this person is suffering. Like, there's something
Hmm.
happening intrinsically, and it just like cannot be seen, but there's pain there. And cosmetic surgery can alter a feature of somebody's face, but it's it can't automatically make you feel attractive. Like there's still something inside of you that like needs like help. But I guess I'm like, does that make sense with regards to like the parts of us that like want to be like filled essentially? Like
Mm.
there's holes inside of us with regards to, and then I think people notice it and they're like, okay, how can we get this person to like feel more fulfilled in that part of them? But
Mm.
the work would be to turn inward and like really understand like that part of self, but it's easier to buy the thing and get that kind of like instant, I'm on the right track to feeling better about myself.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, and I think it's also right. Basically, we're missing the point, but
Yeah.
other people are making money off of all of us missing the point, searching for this thing, grasping for something that we think will fix this thing that we're not even necessarily conscious of. We
Hmm.
just think, oh, I just want to be hot. And
Yes.
if I get hot, then I'll be liked by people. As a man, I'll be able to get the hot woman or hot women. And if I'm a woman, then other women will envy me and whatever it is, right? But
Hmm.
that's kind of like the outer layer of experience. So let's say we're in your clinical practice, right? And you've got a woman who wants to get plastic surgery and you're sensing, right? We're missing the picture here, right? If we look inwards, there's something else going on within you. What do you see there? What have you seen there? Or how would you approach that?
I would look at the story that she's telling herself. Like, what is the story around getting plastic surgery and or cosmetic surgery? What is the hope? Like, what is the hope that she would feel on the other end of that? Like, I
Mm,
would finally feel XYZ, and I'd understand like the components of that story. Why is that the belief there? And why can't you feel that now? Like, what's holding you back from fully being able to feel that experience now?
mm,
Also, like, when did this begin? Because a lot of times, and this goes back because I interned at a psychodynamic practice before. So
mm,
like I'm very like psychodynamic in nature, but like a lot of this I feel like goes back to childhood
mm,
and the information that was funneled into that person at a young age. So I'd kind of be like, let's like look back at your childhood. When did you understand and recognize and realize that beauty was important? When did you kind of start looking at your body in a different way? Like when did you become aware of your body? I feel like that's like
mm.
such an interesting kind of conversation too, to think about like because when we're children and you think about being a kid, like I don't really think any of us are thinking about our bodies. We're just moving them and just like expressing ourselves. There
Yeah.
is like a pivotal moment in everyone's lives where you like really begin to understand, like, I have a body and people are like bearing witness to it. And now I'm creating feelings around it and
Mm,
projecting things onto it. And I'd want to understand that. So I'd go back to that and be like, okay, what exactly is happening? When that idea of self was being formed, or the idea of your body was being formed, what were the stories you were telling yourself, and how were other people also contributing to that? Was your mother saying, oh, like you can't look fat, I can't look fat, and because if I look fat then other people will not like me, or like talk about other women's bodies being like, oh, that person looks X, Y, and Z. And I think a lot of times those kinds of voices can be quickly internalized and then be like, okay, if my mother is talking this way about these other women, other women must be talking about my body in that way too. Like I think there's like
mm,
a big component of that. So I'd want to go back into the history, understand the initial stories, how those stories evolved over time, because they do. Like
mm,
from maybe middle school is when the first understanding of one's body came about, and then in college something maybe happened. Like I think there's like a whole evolution as your body does mature and change. Like you do have a different relationship with it.
mm,
And I'd really want to know when, if any, times that this person like feels beautiful. Like I'd be really curious to know, like, are there times when you aren't preoccupied with your body? Is there times when you feel free from that? Like, when do you feel the most beautiful? Like, is it around a certain person? Like, I'd love to understand those pieces as well, because I think maybe recognizing some of those moments can also help the person realize, like, I have the power inside of me to experience myself differently, which
mm.
can also be incredibly liberating.
So what do you think somebody believes, if I just change my face, then I'll be able to get this thing. And you're saying, well, there's more to this than just changing your face. In
Hmm.
that even if you change your face, you're not necessarily going to find that thing. Now, I do think there's probably some people that genuinely feel better after they get some sort of cosmetic surgery. And
Yeah,
there's some people that feel better when, they get stronger and maybe they get a six pack. I don't know. Right? I think some
yeah.
people probably do change a little bit, right? I think you and I would agree that there's still benefits to, you know, sometimes changing features by yourself, which could be cosmetic surgery or it could just be exercise and something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but putting that aside, what do you think it is that people are really searching for?
Freedom. I think
Okay.
I think freedom from self, because I think
Mm,
first off, like preoccupation with one's body is a type of prison in and of itself. Like if
mm,
you have preoccupations, they fill up your mind. There's no freedom there. There's no freedom to experience peace, joy, happiness, all these
mm,
other kinds of spectrum of emotion that are also important to having a vital and full life.
mm,
Not being able to tap into those other components because you're so imprisoned by your own thought loops about how like ugly you look or like I think that in and of itself is so incredibly painful. So I
mm.
think people want to feel free. I think people want to be able to experience the world in a way that is enriching. And you can't do that if you show up into a space and the whole time you cannot take another human being in because you're so preoccupied with your internal dialogue.
Wow, that was really good. You
Thanks.
just because you're right that whether or not you're just being vain, right? And it's almost like this narcissistic thing, like, oh, I'm so attractive. Look at me on my Instagram, or you're having this extreme anxiety and shame around how you look, and you're always thinking about it. At the end of the day, both of these things are you're occupied with something that you're really missing out on so many other things that are meaningful in
Yeah.
life. Whether you are generically attractive and beautiful or you're not, you're still focusing on something that is very limiting. It is kind of like you're trapped in this cage of just this internal dialogue of
Yes.
self-absorption.
Absolutely. And I feel like in a lot of circumstances, we have the key in our back pocket. And like we know that it's there, but we also don't want to leave because it's like, what happens when I stop the preoccupation? Like, does
Mm,
that mean I just let go of myself completely? Like, does that mean I'll be less lovable then? I think there's also a component of love of being lovable. And like, what does that mean?
mm.
And so, yeah, my thought process is like, take the key out of your back pocket, baby, and lock that cage.
Okay, so let's say we've all have that key and you help your clients get themselves out of the cage. In your
Mhm.
experience, what does life look like if you're moving towards freedom?
You're more energized. Like I think there's like a reinvigoration of like, oh my gosh, I can, like you said before, like I can think about other things. Like I can experience the world more fully. I think before you're seeing the world in a color that's just like gray or black and white. Like there's no dimension.
Mm,
When you get out of your own mind, you can see the world in
mm,
more of a dimensional way and like get to
mm,
experience it more fully. And also, I think experience, I think there's like an element of confidence too that comes from that, of like not
mm,
being so in your head, of
mhm,
being able to just like be a little bit more like grounded and present.
mm.
What do you think?
No, yeah, I agree. I think um there are things about my appearance or my body that in theory, right, if a genie could change it, I'd probably say, yeah, yeah, please
Hmm.
be my guest. And at the same time, right, there's so many other things in my life that I care about that I'm involved in that have nothing to do with my appearance, right, that are so meaningful and I'm engaged in those things.
Hmm.
Um, and that could be anything from, teaching my class feels very exciting a lot of the time, and it's something that's very meaningful to me. And I'm not, concerned with my appearance during that time. Or if I'm petting a dog, right, and it's just cute and we're just in the moment, I'm not focused on, my hairline.
Mm.
Now, to play devil's advocate a little bit, right? And I'll speak for the guys here.
Okay.
So there's a lot of guys that are going to say, okay, that's fine, let's all sing Kumbaya and accept ourselves for how we are. But at the end of the day, right, women want a guy who's 6 feet tall or
Mm,
taller, right? That's one of the things now, right? That's I don't know how true it is, but a lot of
mhm.
guys will. I've had guys talk to me in therapy and they're like, I'm not 6 feet, right? And they're worried, right? I'm not going to be accepted by women or I'm not going to be as attractive. And they say, you know what? If there's a possibility for me to become this height with some new technology, you know, why not let us do it, right? We want to be taller or we want to be stronger or buffer. What do you say to that? Because on some level there it's a cage. And at the same
Mm.
time, I think some people feel genuinely that they'll be liberated if they're able to get some of these what they perceive to be advantages. And I think in many cases are advantages, right? I think being attractive does have an advantage to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy you're bringing that up. Have you seen the movie Materialists?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's a movie with Dakota Johnson. And basically the movie, there's a component where she's a matchmaker and she's like looking at people through basically like what is their value? Like, what do they bring to the table? So she's like
Hmm.
looking at like career and also like height and
Hmm.
like how good looking that like she's like kind of she's commodifying the person and figuring out like what who would be a good match depending on like what that person's inherent value and worth
Hmm.
is,
Hmm.
pairing them. And so I feel like your point is very like important in the movie. The Pedro Pascal character, he ends up getting that like leg extension surgery. And
Okay.
so because he basically brings up your point, which is like, I'm now inherently more valuable, like now that I'm taller. And
Hmm.
I guess a part of me, like, while those parts are important, again, I feel like I look at it from like a dimensional lens where I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, like the physical component is incredibly attractive because I think physical features do signal something important to to women in general. Like I think about
Hmm.
like having a bigger guy. What does that signal to us, maybe unconsciously? Is this person can protect us. This person can keep us safe.
Hmm.
I think there's like components of like physical attraction too that people talk about. That's like if a person has a more symmetrical face, like maybe there is more, they're healthier. There's like they're more vital. Like I think there are some unconscious things that are being signaled to us because
Hmm.
of our physical features. My thought process is like somebody who maybe isn't 6 feet tall are they able to convey some of these inherent value components that we as women feel, such as we want to feel safe? Like, can this person make me feel safe? Are there
Hmm.
things that this guy who's maybe shorter brings to the table that makes me feel more secure and safe? I feel
Hmm.
like that's a major component of importance. Like, I guess a part of me is like, I would take those traits and translate them into what they actually mean unconsciously to the woman to
Hmm.
make us understand exactly why these things are valuable to us.
Hmm.
Like, if a person's symmetrical face means that they're more vital or more healthy, if a person is like shorter and doesn't have a symmetrical face or whatever the thing is,
Yeah.
like, what things can they do to signal that they can bring safety and protection to the relationship, that they can be a good provider, whatever that means?
Hmm.
And what are their like do they value things such as like health and wellness? Like, are they cooking for themselves? Can they do that? Can they take care of a home? Like,
Hmm.
I feel like there's so much that can be conveyed through different types of behaviors more than appearance can. Like I feel like when I
Hmm.
think about appearance too, like yes, things can be great at face value, but like there's so much more when you get to know a person. They could have all the things, but if they don't have all the like on the surface, it might be signaling that they have all those values or they do bring all those things to the table, but maybe they actually don't. And maybe a person who doesn't, who is actually has more aligned values with you, I think those people can, if they have this information of like, we can convey some of these subtle things that women actually want, I
Mm.
think could be really, I think important and interesting for them to like consider.
Yeah, so uh this is one of those things that's just kind of brutal too, because at the end of the day, and this is something that comes up in therapy, right, is reality check time, where it's like we're primates, and on
Yeah.
some level, everything's conditional, right?
Hmm.
And so I think a lot of people struggle with that,
Yeah.
right? They struggle with, why do I have to be funny and make a decent amount of money and be well groomed to be liked by women, right? Or for women, right? Why do I have to be pretty and have markers for youth and be patient and accommodating and whatever, right? I don't know what exactly the memes are, but you know, d is my worth really based off of, being something for someone else, right? This external validation, this conditional worth piece is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. And so what's your approach to that as a therapist, both moving towards acceptance, right? And liberating yourself from the chains of all these conditions we have in society and in our relationships, and also the reality that we're human beings in a world that's still ruled by nature, and we have to just kind of make the best that we can out of that.
Yeah, I think to me, the most important things to consider is like who are you authentically and how much of that is actually being fully brought out because a part of me is like hearing what you're saying and I'm having like a couple of thoughts come to mind, which is like as you were talking about like why do I have to be like well groomed and like be funny? But I'm kind of like, well, don't you want that for yourself? Like I want that for myself. Like I want people to think I'm funny and like I want all those things and like because I but it's a part of like my authentic code. Like it's like a
Mm-hmm.
part of who I am. Like I want to be like a well-rounded person because I want to be able to experience the more world more fully. And like you said, like when you do feel good in the world and you present yourself in a certain way, I feel like you do get more access to more experiences. And I do also feel like there's an intrinsic component of like if I feel like I'm bringing something valuable to the table, I'm more apt to be able to show up in some of these spaces that maybe I wouldn't if I didn't feel so confident. So
Mm-hmm.
part of me is thinking about like what are, I guess my question for these people would be like, what are your values? What do you
Mm-hmm.
value? Do you value what I would kind of like honestly, I'd start with three. Like I'd be like, what are three of your most important values? And
Mm-hmm.
how can we edge closer to those values? Like how can we get you closer to embodying those things? Because if you're doing things that aren't a part of what you value or do not feel aligned with who you are, then you're going to end up feeling more disconnected from self at the end of the pursuit of those things and more unhappy. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
like in the pursuit, in the constant, hopefully constant pursuit of growth, in some way we're also pursuing maybe happiness. How do we gain that? I think it's by becoming more and more of ourselves. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that also means looking at ourselves with scrutiny and being like, okay, what parts of me are truly me and what parts of me have I brought onto myself because I thought that would make me more likable, more lovable, but it's actually like exhausting me because it's a persona.
So we went so many layers here, and just to summarize it real quick, right? Like we started this top layer, which is Instagram, and I
Hmm.
see hot people on Instagram, and I want to be hot too, so that I can get that external validation and people like my pictures. And
Hmm.
then it's like, okay, well, you're going to get plastic surgery to be hot, and we're finding out that there's actually more here, right? So if we do this screening, we find that you actually have these symptoms of BDD, and your sense of reality is actually quite distorted, and there's this underlying anxiety and fear here, this obsession that is something that we want to stop you from hurting yourself, basically.
Yeah.
And so beneath that then is, well, what do you do next, right? If we're not going to alter our face or whatever to find this thing that we're searching for. We go to therapy, and from what you're saying, you find out that we're missing the point. There's actually an underlying deeper part of us that's seeking something, and there's a way to take the key out of the back of our pocket through therapy and uncage ourselves from whatever it is from our childhood that created this anxiety dynamic that's seeking for this thing up here, but we can actually go much deeper in therapy and liberate ourselves and actually come to self-acceptance and lead a meaningful life, which can include getting cosmetic surgery or not, sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like also, first off, beautifully said. But I think that's like all a part of like the following yourself authentically. Like what is my deepest desire and honoring that, whatever that looks like.
Mhm. All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Dr. Pamela O'Leary.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's again, it's so cool that we did our first role play together in graduate school, and now here we are.
I know. What a blessing.